Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing, Camper Kings UK, and affiliation with BetMate.
Hello everyone, welcome to Across the Park podcast. Sorry a bit late getting this week's episode out, but it's Friday, it's the day before another packed weekend of football, so it's a great time to be talking footy. It's myself, Gary, Judge, Andrew Price representing the Blues, and then we've got Gary Murray representing the Reds. I'm sitting nicely in the middle if you're watching on YouTube here, so I'm going to try and play the role of presenter and flip between the Blues and the Reds, but obviously I'm going to have a blue preference. Going to keep it quite light-hearted this week. It's we're only a couple of games into the season. Thankful to say we won't be getting carried away because we've only got 0 points. We haven't got any points yet. And I don't think the Reds will be getting too worried at the moment with only their 2 points on the board. But just while we're on that one, just thoughts, lads, on how the season started. I'll start with you, Gary. I mean, I think you will have expected at least, it's safe to say, to have picked up one win so far.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a bit of a disaster of a start of the season. To be fair, I can take the Fulham one. I can sort of take a bit more than the Palace one, because the Fulham one we didn't really deserve anything of the game. We started slow, which we all know. Klopp come out. He said he weren't happy at all, and based on that, the fact that we come out with a point was probably something that we didn't even deserve. So I've seen that as a bit of a point gained. The Palace one, I expected us to come out like a bat out of hell and absolutely dominate. I was saying to the lads, I'm expecting 4-5-0 here. And the fact that we did dominate, we were so on top, but it was the same old story again. The teams just putting that low block in, sitting dead deep, and us not being able to break them down. So
I thought, sorry, with the signing of Nunez, or what they were talking about, some Monday Night Football, how to pronounce it. I think it's Nunez, is it? Nunez?
Yeah, let's just say Nunez, though. It sounds weird.
I thought, and I think you agreed to some extent, that the signing of Nunez was going to help with that kind of low block thing, because you'd be able to put balls into the box and whatever. And to be fair, he had chances, didn't he? So yeah. I suppose to some extent that theory was true, but it ends up being something of a disaster for him on the night, and maybe didn't work out the way that you wanted with that strategy.
Yeah, that's it. The thing is that the positive from it is that we are getting the chances, and he is getting the chances. So hopefully it's just a bit of a, he's just started out, he's a little bit nervous and things like that, and the goals will come. We know we can score. We've seen that the goals he scored for Benfica last season, and we've seen the goals he's had for us so far, and it's just one of them. I'm hoping that after this ban he comes back. I think that the first game after that's the derby, ironically. So I'm hoping that once he comes back and gets back into the fold, he can pick up the goals. But I'm not overly worried just yet. It's 2 games in, we're 4 points chasing the leaders already. But that's nothing in the grand scheme of things. We were halfway through the season last season, 14 points behind, ended up on level terms at one point. So the fact that we started slow, it's not a big worry, but I think we need to make sure we start picking points up now.
Just before we move on to Pricey, the other, I guess, aspect of your start is the shape that your rivals, if you like it, and your main rivals are obviously Man City. They flew out the blocks. I don't think there's any surprise there. Do any of the other teams cause you any concerns in terms of them maybe creeping up on you compared to last season?
It's certainly getting closer. You've got to look at Tottenham. We know Conte's a brilliant manager. We know we've seen all the pictures and videos on social media of how he had them all vomiting on the training ground, getting them as fit as he can, and something that probably Spurs haven't had for a while, something that intense. So, we know their quality. Son and Kane, the partnership they've got, and the quality they've added as well. If they get fit as Liverpool and City and are able to keep that work rate up all season and keep going, then they're obviously going to be a hard team to beat, and that'll be for most teams in the league. So I think they'll be a lot higher. They'll probably be third in the league if Liverpool and City carry on the way they have the last few seasons. How close they get, I'm not sure. It probably depends a lot on mental strength there, because if they do get halfway into the season and they're fighting up the top with the likes of City and Liverpool on similar points, it's then like, can they maintain it and can they deal with the pressure of having to stay up there? So a lot of it might come down to that for them because, as I said, we know they've got the quality, the players they've got, and injuries as well. I suppose everyone's going to have to deal with that World Cup in the middle of the season, and they'll have Kane going, and if he suffers an injury, then that's a big loss to them. But yeah, they're one to watch for me. I'm not overly worried about Chelsea. I think they're in a bit of a turmoil at the minute.
I agree.
It's one of them, and with them, they're just going to be. You're not going to know what you're going to get from them each week. I don't think. Arsenal, they started well, but I still don't think they're going to be anywhere near the level to be able to catch the leading pack.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. We'll touch on transfers and potential transfers and who you think would be good to add to the squad later on in the show. Before we do, and before we look at the games ahead, Pricey, just what's your take on Everton's start? Obviously, very similar to a certain extent. Disappointing not to pick up the points that we wanted, but any encouragement there for you? And yeah, where do you see us at the moment?
I think there is encouragement for us. I don't think we've been too bad. I think the Villa game let ourselves down a bit on the ball and in the transition, allowing Villa to get us a little bit too strong. But I can see, I'm not particularly keen on three at the back, but you can see the style he's trying to implement and the players he's brought in so far have been there to support the system he wants to go with. With the wing backs that get up and down, obviously the more experienced centre back. So I think there's encouraging signs. I think it's going to take time. I'm not expecting us to go from staying up with 2 games to go to suddenly being a team that's walking over teams and is free flowing and all that type of thing. I think it's going to be quite painful this season again. But I can see us doing all right this season off the back of the first 2 games. I'm liking Iwobi in midfield. I think he's playing well, but I think he needs help in there. I don't think Decore's been played particularly well in the first couple of games. I'd like to see Onana have a go and see how he is. Maybe in place of Decore. I think Iwobi's been a revelation towards the end of last season, and I think this season is ball. I think he's the person who seems to be wanting to pass the ball and forward passing as much as anything else, which we've lacked in the past. So I think I can see what he's trying to do with that, and I can see why Iwobi's in there. I can see why he's brought in the signings he's brought in. I think we definitely need 1 or 2 more signings coming in. And I think a centre forward goes without saying. We're desperate for one. The Villa game in particular, well, Chelsea and the Villa game proved that we need that focal point up front because the ball was just coming straight back at us. And if they've got 2 centre halves at the back, then I think pretty easy to defend against, to be honest with you. So I'd like to see us change that. But depending on how this last week or so goes with the transfer window and who we bring in and who leaves, I'm quite positive. I think it's going to be quite a decent season and improvement on last season. I just hope that he gets time. I hope the fans give him time. I hope the board give him time. It's not going to happen overnight. But although disappointed with the first 2 results, I'm quietly encouraged. Although saying that, I do think that tomorrow's game is pretty big. I think if we get beat at home to Forest, then heads can start to drop, and we can start as a club, not just as a fan base, but as a club, we can start to lose that belief, I think, a little bit. And you're in the bottom 3 after 3 games with no points, then maybe it looks a bit different. But if we beat Forest, just beat them. But if we beat them convincingly, or we put in a good performance and beat them, then I think it'd be a decent enough start for us, considering that we've lost 2. I think I'd be quite happy to beat Forest and expect us to, as I say, have a decent last week of the window and push on.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Gary spoke about the fact he's encouraged both on Liverpool's end and Nunez's end that they're getting chances. Can't really be said about us, can it? I mean, I suppose it's to be expected considering the lack of forward players or natural strikers we've got in there. Does that concern you going into the last week? Listen, for me, we've been far more strong. We look far more rigid and resilient and organised at the back, and you'd expect that with the likes of Tarkowski and now Konakosi as well. But does that lack of real cutting edge concern you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, the players we've played up front are all wingers, really, aren't they? For want of a better word. And if we don't bring in that centre forward, that striker, then it will concern me, because although we haven't had clear-cut chance, I think there's been enough balls going into the box for if there was a striker in there to have converted at least one of them. So without that centre forward, I would be worried, because even if Calvert-Lewin got fit for next week's game or whatever, I don't think you can rely on him in terms of injury-wise. And I'm not saying he's not a good player. I think he is a good player, but injury-wise, you can't rely on him. So you definitely need somebody either a more quality backup or somebody who's going to challenge him and actually challenge him for his place in the team. And that's what I'd like to see more. I'd like to see someone who's coming in as a starter and battling for that striker's place. But yeah, I think we'll create chances. I think McNeil's looked half decent. He looks a bit, rusty's probably not the right word, but he looks like he's got potential there. If you've got Gordon and Gray wide and they're creating chances, I think we can. But yeah, we definitely need that focal point, 100%.
We'll probably naturally moved on to the Forest game because we'll just touch on both games and look at United obviously on Monday, which is a tasty one for Liverpool and United. I mean, the concern for me going into the Forest game, I look back at their first game of the season, which is a bit of an anomaly, and it's probably one that you discount. It's the first game in the Premier League. They're probably thinking, let's just not get beat and whatever. Newcastle, although he has a lot of ball, didn't really carve out that many chances against them. Forest were, typical kind of newly promoted, trying to be stubborn, trying to, not give away too much space. I look at that, and I think it was some mad. It was a fullback who hit a shot from 30 yards out that ends up breaking the deadlock, and Newcastle ends up getting a second. That concerns me, is that they're going to be that team of Goodison that is a little bit like the Antichrist to a team that hasn't got a forward and hasn't got a team that's blessed with goals. It does concern me, and I am really concerned that if Everton don't get the win, of the impact it has on the morale of the squad. Now, you'd like to think that the players will be putting into context the fact that, we are a few men light from an injury point of view, and we are looking to get other players in. But to lose 3 or to only pick up 1 point from 3 games suddenly starts, that mentality comes back again, doesn't it? Are we going to be back in another relegation scrap? Regardless of how we're playing, are we going to be there again? I think it's a really tricky fixture tomorrow, and I think it's really important, despite it being so early.
Yeah, well, that's what I said before. Is that it can go, can go either way if we don't win. I mean, Forest, they look like they've got that newly promoted sort of swagger's not the right word, but they're full of confidence. They're just happy to be. I mean, to be honest, I didn't watch the full Newcastle game. I've seen the highlights, but I watched the home game against West Ham last week. It was the first home game back in the Premier League, and the crowd was on all for them, and there was like a bit of a jubilant atmosphere there. So I think that carried them over a little bit. I think if they do come to Goodison, they do frustrate us. It will be difficult to break them down because we're not renowned for being able to break those types of teams down anyway. But I think Forest have got a little bit more about them than that. I think they'll fancy themselves to get a win. They won't be coming here just to frustrate. Although they will try and frustrate us, I think they'll be coming here and they'll see Everton as maybe a victory. Because obviously coming in as a newly promoted team, I think you get your teams. I mean, Scott Parker said it for Man City last week when they played, going off piste a little bit here. But you look at the teams you're expecting to get points off. You look at the teams who you just write off and you just try your best, although you're not. Everton will be a team that all promoted teams will want to get points off, whether it's a draw or a win. I think Forest will come with that attitude. I think that they can try and turn us over. And we've got to be ready for that. We've got to be ready for them to frustrate us. We've also got to be ready for them to come at us and think that they can get the win. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I said it before. It's massive's not the word, but it's quite a big game because I think we've got to get a win on the board soon. And Forest at home, a newly promoted team at home, is one that you've got to win if you're going to push on.
Quick question then before we move on to predictions: would you play Rondon?
I play Rondon, yeah. I will play Rondon because I think you need that focal point. Even if he's just doing what Rondon does, getting on, not running around too much. I mean, he showed glimpses that he offers something last season. I think he offered glimpses, but I'd rather have someone who's going to be in the box and them crosses come in and is a I use the phrase loosely, but he is a goal scorer compared to the other 3 that have been playing up there. So I would play him. Yeah,
particularly when you're playing, and we've seen this in the first 2 games, when the fullbacks or the wing backs are so more advanced. Particularly against Villa later on in the game, Patterson and Mikalenko, some of that, the 2 of the highest players up the pitch. You've got your wing backs so high up the pitch. The one thing they're going to be looking to do is to get balls in the box, and you need someone's on the end of it. Now, another plus, obviously, just to throw something else in the mix, you'd expect to see. Well, I would expect to see a home debut for Nana, who, from what we've seen against Villa, is going to be a physical threat in the box. He's going to be that. A lot of pundits have likened him already to Fellaini because he's that big, huge, awkward, 6'3" midfielder, and we've seen against Villa when he gets in the box that he's so powerful that he will make things happen. Is that a big factor for you? Would you start an Arna? I guess is the next question.
Yeah, because I don't think Decore started the season particularly well. The only concern, so I would start him. The only concern I'd have is what happened to Villa is when we lose the ball, we haven't got that holding midfielder, and he can get us quite easily. I think Villa's first goal just summed up exactly how to play against Everton. You just, as soon as you got the ball, you hit it wide, and you get the spread the in between the fullbacks, and you haven't got a holding midfielder to sort of block that off. So that's the only concern. If you play him, if he's more of a, I've seen literally 20 minutes or ever he come on. I've never seen him before, so I don't know if he is more of an attacking player than a defensive. I think he's just box to box from what I've read. But
I guess
I'd worry there's no.
Sorry, mate. I guess with that in mind, though, with the point you're making there, we could play 3-5-2, couldn't we? As in having three in the middle where we have a holder, we have an Arna and a Iwobi, because Iwobi deserves to stay in the team, and then we maybe have Gordon off runs on.
You're losing two attacking players though, there, aren't you? You or at least one attacking player there. So you rely on your fullbacks even more so, aren't you?
If your wing-backs are playing so much further up the pitch and you're giving them that license, they effectively become your wide midfielders. You're giving Arna the license to get up alongside Gordon and Rondon, which I think is important. I think that'll be something I'd like to think that that Lampard will have considered tomorrow, but we'll obviously see.
Yeah. Do you think there's any chance of Gordon not playing with the links to Chelsea?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that'll come into it.
No, I think what we do know about Gordon, despite him being a young player and relatively inexperienced, he's not. I don't think he's flashy. I don't think he's one of them who have been at the balls every day last week saying, I
don't mean him down on tools. I don't mean anything like that. I just mean if the likelihood is that he's going to end up going, if a big enough fee comes in, will he be one of them where they don't play him for that reason?
Well, I think we'll come on to it after your game, but my simple answer to that be, if he doesn't start tomorrow, he's going, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I was going to say. The only reason he wouldn't start if he's going, if we're keeping him, there's no reason not to start him, is there?
Yeah, I think if the stance from Lampard, and his press conference is in an hour's time, so we haven't quite seen that yet, but I think the stance from Lampard in the press conference will tell us a lot. I'd like to think since he's come in, the one thing you can say about him, he's been pretty blunt and honest to the fans on every level. So I think you'd expect to get a strong indication from him as to whether that's going to be a factor. But putting it simple, I think if we intend to keep him, he starts all day long.
Yeah.
But anyway, slightly different fixture on the Monday night for yourselves, and a weird one and it's almost like last season when United were that bad. It almost makes the fixture a bit more tricky than it would usually.
Especially with the start of the season, we both had, to be fair. We're going there, massive favourites. I think there was a mad thing, I know this doesn't say much, but on that Super 6, you can have a look at what the most predictions are, and it was like 96% of people are expecting a Liverpool win. Now, when does that ever happen at Old Trafford? It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think I think most people watching will be expecting Liverpool win. They're in some terrible situations at the minute. God knows what's going on over there, but long may that continue, and hopefully that carries on Monday, because we desperately need a win now, especially in this game. If we manage to get beat in this game, that is just a disaster, because the start of the season they've had, we know how bad they are, the bad form they're in. We're not. We haven't really particularly played badly. Didn't have a great game against Fulham, but we played really well against Palace. The quality is still there. The plus for us is the fact that we've got he was in the press conference this morning, I think, or he was getting asked that Firmino's going to be back, it was going to be a worry about how we were going to play and whether we were going to have to rely on like Elliott and Carvalho coming in, because with their Núñez suspension, Jota still injured. We've only really had Salah and Diaz fit.
Struggling there, aren't you?
Well, obviously the two great players. You're not going to struggle with them two, but you're then forcing probably Carvalho or Elliott to go into the front three and relying on them, as opposed to getting them good game time. And then the midfield as well. They're sort of dropping as well. And I think we're probably. I thought Henderson was injured, to be honest, when he didn't play against Palace. Everyone was thinking he was injured, but he came on, and looked all right. So maybe he just got, I don't know, dropped because he didn't have a decent game or whatever. But So you're expecting Henderson to come back in. Milner will probably play again, and Fabinho. But other than that, you're then looking at the younger players. Don't think I think Naby Keita sort of like that, whether he's going to be fit or not. I think he was on
isn't he?
every single week. Yeah, whenever we play, we don't know what we're going to get. If he is fit, I wouldn't be too surprised if he did play. He's that sort of player.
He played at Old Trafford last year, didn't he? When he was back,
and had a good game. Yeah, he scored the first goal.
Yeah.
Scored the first goal, Keita, and he's that player that we haven't really got. He's like a link between the midfield and the forwards. He can do that when he's on his game. We know he can do it. We know he can sort of drop the shoulder, take a man on, and feed the ball forward. And it is something that we do tend to miss in these scenarios. That's where Núñez would be good again. Starting if he weren't suspended, because if Naby Keita can sort of bring the ball forward and lay these little balls in through the back line, then it's exactly what you want with a proper number 9. But again, Firmino coming back in, everyone was sort of touting him at the start of the season to have a boss here. I don't know where it came from, but because he hasn't been too good for the last couple of seasons, but everyone was like proper excited to see him again, and he started terribly against Fulham. But hopefully he can come back in and get that bit of hunger back and bit of fight, especially with it being United at Old Trafford. Their fans are going to want to see some sort of fight, even if the quality isn't there. As long as they're going to demand at least a fight. We've got to be prepared for that. We've got to be prepared for them to try and stop the rot and try and get something out of the game. So as long as we don't go in like we did against Fulham, thinking we just need to turn up and we'll get the 3 points. If we turn up and play our game, I can't see anything but a Liverpool win, really.
I think it's a really interesting test for Ten Hag, because if he's going to be stubborn, and he's going to be the stubborn coach that we're led to believe he is, and the way he wants his team to play in a certain way, if he tries to play anything like they played at Brentford, he's going to absolutely destroy them, because Brentford aren't particularly renowned for being the pressers that you guys are, or that a high intensity playing high up the pitch, but they recognise very quickly that if you
can get at them.
Yeah, if you get players high enough up the pitch when they're trying to play from the back, you'll nick the ball off them, and it could get really embarrassing.
United's patterns of play as well was so obvious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What they were trying to do was just so obvious, like schoolboy stuff when you're trying to first teach kids how to play out from the back. It was so basic. I've never seen it. Supposedly top team play so bad in years. I thought they were absolutely terrible. If
that's it.
And like you said, if they're half like that,
saying. Yeah, if Ten Hag is as stubborn as we're led to believe he is, and he does stick with that, we'll have watched videos on that and basically seen how we can pick them apart. So hopefully he is, and hopefully he does stick with it, and hopefully Maguire plays, because he's crap.
I don't think. I think he's pretty much. He's as much said that Maguire's not going to play. And it'll be Martinez and Varane.
He's the fall guy, but he's not the only one. He's not.
No, he's definitely not.
He's the scapegoat, but he's not the only one.
I can't understand why they're not playing a back three at this stage, just because of the fact that Martinez is tiny, he's new to the league. Maguire's he's all right in a back three. I think he can get away with it if he's got legs either side of him, because he's that big galoot that you want in the middle, just come and win a header and forget about marking people. But when he has to try and lock onto someone, and then like he's one of the two, I just think he's so easy to target.
That Martinez never called himself in glory either, did he though? On his first start.
Who? Sorry,
Martinez against Brentford.
Isn't he? And again, he's another person now. Play him in a back two, and you just have one forward locking onto him and targeting him, because he's my height, 5'8", 5'9". So I think he's an easy target again. Whereas if you play in a back three, you can get your two centre backs who are comfortable in the air to go and do that work for you. But look who we, and he's a world class coach. I'm sure he'll work it out. I hope he works it out before Monday. So between us then, a couple of predictions. I'll go to you first, Pricey. Everton, Forest.
Yeah, I've got to fancy us to win. I think I'll go 1-0.
Gaz?
I'll go 3-0 Liverpool.
I thought you were going to do the Everton prediction, and you're going to say 3-0.
Everton, okay, I'll go Everton. I'll do I'll say 1-1.
1-1 and 3-0 to Liverpool. Pricey, do you fancy having a stab at the Liverpool one?
Yeah, I think Liverpool will comfortably win. 3-0 sounds all right to me. Well, it doesn't sound all right to me, but it sounds like I agree with it.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 to Everton. I think Forest might get off the mark against us, and 4-1 Liverpool. I really can't see anything other than a heavy defeat for United. So before we said we'd keep it short. It's the day before the weekend, so I'm not sure people will have that long to listen. Before we do sign out, just to, we are, as you said, Pricey, a few times, we're going into the last 10 days of the transfer window. What's on your wish list? I think a striker is a bit of a absolute no-brainer, an obvious one. Anywhere else that you think we need to strengthen, and can you see anyone else leaving aside from Gordon?
The only people that might leave is like the Deadwood, who he wants, get rid of and loan out maybe. I don't know if Dele Alli's gone at this stage, but he looks like he's going. Gordon, yeah, as you say, it depends what they want to do with that. But got to bring in 2-3 players, leaving it late, I suppose. But if we have to sell to bring them in, then you probably expect Gordon to go and use that money. Alternatively, maybe one sign and a couple of loans might work. But yeah, I think we definitely need a forward and probably another midfielder, if I'm honest. They're definites, and then maybe anyone else who we can bring in after that.
Yeah, okay. I almost think we need 2 forwards, to be honest, not centre forwards, but I think we need someone to give a bit more competition in the wide areas. I think ideally it's what he's probably looking for, and it might be the reason why he's finding it so difficult. He's probably looking for someone in the mould of a Richarlison who can play on the right and also play as a forward, or play on the left, play anywhere across that front three. Because you look at the 3, if you like, wide players that are predominantly going to be in them positions this season. You've got Gordon, you've got Gray, you've got McNeil. None of them have shown in the last season or two that they're renowned for ultimate consistency, and they've got loads of goals in them. So I think that might be a little bit one of the reasons why he struggled to get the person he wants. Is he probably wants someone who can do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not easy to come by. I agree I think we need another midfielder. I expect to see Allen and Gomez both leave. I think Allen's got a bit of a decent reputation in Serie A for him to be able to go there, and I think likewise Gomez has got a bit of currency in Spain and Portugal, but I can think the money's a factor as well. But I think they might be 2 that leave late in the window, and that does mean that we are light in the midfield area. So unfortunately, I don't think it's the right fit, but I think Gilmour might come in from Chelsea. I still don't think he's quite ready. I think he's another Tom Davies potentially. I think we need someone a bit more combative than that, but unfortunately, I think he might be one of the ones that comes in.
I don't fancy him. I don't fancy just going on to forwards as well. The guy from Brighton either, Morpie, however you spell his name. The amount of times I've seen him miss chances, and because if we got him, I'll be honest.
He's one of the ones for me that I think if we bought 2 forwards in and we bought a decent, wide player who can give us more goals, I wouldn't be against the Morpie signing, just in terms of someone coming off the bench or playing who has shown he can score goals in the Premier League. He's done it for 3 or 4 seasons. He
hardly scored, Judge. He doesn't score a lot.
He has.
The amount he misses, 1 in 4 he's got.
He scored 10 to 12 goals every season for the last 3 or 4 seasons.
Mate,
the most he scored 12, the least he scored is 8. Look, doesn't excite me, don't get me wrong, but if we talk about improving our squad, and at the moment the only player who comes in for Calvert-Lewin is Rondon, I wouldn't be against getting him if we got the right quality of forwards in a wide area as well. But look, it's I
don't know how reliable it is, because I only seen it on social media, but they were talking about Ollie Watkins and saying that Villa would be prepared to sell, but it'd cost. So it might be a case of whatever you get for Gordon goes on Ollie Watkins.
I don't know why Villa does want to sell Ollie Watkins though.
He's apparently fell out with Gerrard, hasn't he? I think it's a bit of a personal thing. I heard that before.
Your hand off for him, no?
Oh, 100%. Listen, we're not talking about Morpies if you get an Ollie Watkins. I think that'd be a massive coup for us. Yeah, interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of irons in the fire. I think there's certainly a lot of rumours. Gary, what's on your wish list going into the last week, realistically?
Well, reading between not even reading between the lines. Basically, Klopp's been saying there's going to be no incomings for the rest of the window. We don't need any. As much as the chat from Liverpool fans has been, we need a midfielder. That's been the big thing. He said as long as there's no outgoings or there's no major injuries and things like that, he's not really looking. But I think for me, the fact that it's looking like we can't rely on the players we've got to stay fit. Even as far as the centre-backs go, we had to play Nat Phillips the other day, which I didn't think would be happening, certainly this early on in the season. You know, Gomez, I think, weren't 100% fit, so he was on the bench and did end up coming on. But, you know, we didn't have Kanate, didn't have Matip, and so we don't do, and I say Gomez was only half fit, so we only had Van Dijk and Phillips. And then the midfield situation, we've only actually got senior players is Fabinho, Milner, and Henderson. We've got Keita, who's wet paper bag. You've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's out again for long term.
You just let Tyler Morton's just gone on loan to Blackburn, who was maybe kind of fourth or fifth choice.
Yeah, but even Tyler Morton, he'd have been sort of fourth and fifth choice behind like Fabinho. He'd have been coming in for that sort of role. He's more of a defensive player, isn't he? So it's more like the attacking side of it that we're lacking. Keita's really the only one ahead of Elliott and Carvalho. But again, I don't know whether you're going to be able to rely on them to pull you out. You don't want it to be a case of you're looking at 18, 19-year-old kids to come on and win your games.
Well, again, just an interesting one, and I don't know if I read this wrong because I was watching it on the telly and I didn't have the commentary on. It looked to me when in the latter stages against Fulham, certainly the Trent kind of pushed into midfield. It was like he was very narrow anyway. If he didn't,
yeah, he'd done it a couple of times last season. Where it was mainly in games where we were like 2-3-0 up. He'd started sort of drifting into the midfield and trying to pull a few strings from there. And against Palace, because we were chasing it a bit, he moved into the middle. At one point after Nunes went off, he was like in a centre forward position. But it's not something that I'd like to rely on because you've got no cover there for Trent at right back. No real cover. You know, we brought that Ramsey in, but he hasn't even played yet. We don't know what he's like. So I wouldn't really like to think Trent's going to be the cover for the midfield and Ramsey's going to come in and expect to be able to do the job because we rely so heavily on our fullback. So.
How bad's Gomez?
Sorry.
How bad's Gomez's injury?
He came on against Palace. Yeah, so I think it was just a fitness thing for Gomez because he's only just come back from injury. So I'd be expecting him.
He's been at times, hasn't he, at right back as well? He's not obviously ideal, but I think
at the moment, with no Kanate and no Matip, you're expecting him to play at centre back with Van Dijk. Certainly on Monday night. But yeah, so the midfield is the main concern, I think, and especially now, you know, there's been reports that Naby Keita's looking to potentially go elsewhere to get more game time, which, you know, I wouldn't say no to if we could get a decent fee for him and open up a signing. The talk is loads and loads of people are reporting now that we've sort of already done a deal for Bellingham for next season. How true it is, we don't know, but it is being reported quite a few different journalists now. And again, the fact that Keita's like that and he could potentially leave, it's like they're trying to get that over the line for this window now.
It wouldn't surprise. That's the way the Dortmund work. It wouldn't surprise me to see Keita go on loan to Dortmund this season as a bit of a make weight for you taking Bellingham next season. I do think it probably leaves you, as you've alluded to, very light for the upcoming season if that happens. But if Klopp's saying that no one comes in, if no one leaves, maybe that's something he's got a little something up his sleeve for.
Yeah, I think if Keita was to go, I do think we bring someone in, whether that be a Bellingham if they manage to get that over the line, or whether it be someone else to replace Keita. I do think if Keita went, I don't think he'd stick to that story now that he won't be bringing anyone in. I think we would have someone coming in. But again, last 10 days of the window, we could do with it now rather than right at the end, especially with the players that are injured, and we don't know when we're going to get them back. So, yeah, it's not so much a wish list. It's more of I'm a bit intrigued as to see what happens. You know, hopefully we could get the Bellingham one over the line because another season waiting for him, and you know, there's nothing saying that he doesn't pick up a big injury and that ruins it for next year. So it's one of them. I couldn't see Dortmund letting Haaland and Bellingham go in the same window. So I think that'll be the big struggle.
Yeah. Okay, well, again, remains to be seen, and we've still got another 10 days. I think the show next week, we'll hopefully have a little bit more information, bit of an insight of which direction the clubs are going to go. I think from Everton's case, I don't know what you price it, it's probably going to go right to the wire, isn't it? I think they're probably waiting. It's like, and I'm sure we're not the only club in this boat. We're probably waiting for one deal to go through for another to then follow on our end. Like Chelsea, for example, really heavily linked now with Aubameyang. You'd imagine him going would maybe free up some of their forward players. I really hope it's not Batshuayi and he goes somewhere else. But But again, I think it might be one of them where we're waiting for one move to materialise for them to then complete another one. But again, I think next week will tell us a lot more. But yeah, that's it. That's about it from us this week.
Just before we finish, Judge, just before we finish, can we say we've done a family fun day last Saturday for Alfie's squad, which went quite well. We raised £1,300. I think his mum and Alfie were aiming for £900. We raised £1,300. Me and Millsy done a bit of a podcast on the stage with Michael Ball, who helped out, and he was really generous with his time. So I just want to thank him and thank everyone involved who came down. It was a really good day, and we raised a bit of money for Alfie's squad. So I just want to say thanks to everyone there. Alfie's Twitter, if anyone's interested, is at Alfie's Squad. So if anyone wants to go and have a look over on his Twitter and maybe support the cause, they can do. But yeah, thanks to everyone who came down and was involved last Saturday. Really appreciate that.
No, well done to you, Millsy, and to Bawley, good friends of the show, for helping out. Alfie, we've known Alfie for quite a long time. Unbelievable young boy who campaigns for his cause on Twitter, and he's, along with his mum, has held a number of days like that. So really, get behind Alfie's squad, follow him on Twitter, and well done to everyone who turned up and showed the support on Saturday. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks everyone. As always, please subscribe if you don't already. Should be the button below where you're watching the video. Any questions or comments, please put them in below. We love hearing from you. And any questions you've got for the upcoming shows, please send them on Twitter, on Instagram, or via the website. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next week.